You know, I'm an old-fashioned guy in this respect. I still believe that Dr. King was right, and that those heroic young people who gathered here at this campus in 1964 were right, and that the great court decision in Brown versus Board of Education was right in telling us that racial isolation does tremendous damage to the young mentalities of children by giving them the message that they have been set apart, like an infectious subset of the population, so that they cannot contaminate the education of the rest of us. I still believe this represents a sin against the highest moral values of American society. Cincinnati, as you probably know, has one of the most segregated systems in the country. For black children, the schools of Cincinnati are the 8th most segregated in the nation. The worst is Detroit, then Chicago, New York City, and LA. Ohio's schools are also among the most unequal in per pupil spending. Again and again, the courts here. Any of you old enough to remember the court decisions of the 1990s? Well, I was involved in that struggle for a decade. Again and again, the courts here in Ohio found the present system to be unconstitutional. And again, governors and members of the legislature defied the orders of the court and did so with impunity. Now, I don't like to be impolite to nice people, and a lot of nice people do bad things. That's the misfortune of it all. I met the governor of this state at that time, a man who was the son of a president of the United States himself. Do you know who I mean? Robert Taft, Bob Taft. Every time a court ordered that the schools had to be equalized in funding, he would just refuse to obey it. He would just say, we can't afford it, or we don't have the money, which meant they weren't willing to tax the people who did have the money to make it possible. I met him once in Cincinnati. I don't know why, but I was invited to preach at his church. And I'm Jewish, I told you that. This was like an Episcopal cathedral in Cincinnati, Episcopalian. And they told me, that's the governor right there in the front row. And so, I looked right at him while I was talking about this. I just can't tell you as a Jew how much joy I get in preaching to delinquent Christians, Forgive me. I quoted the words of Jesus right at him, The least of these among us. Didn't matter. Nothing changed. Now, I have friends in wealthy suburbs all over the country, in this state and in New York and elsewhere. And they always tell me they care about poor children. They always say, Jonathan, I deeply care about those children that you work with, those children, But then it's the oddest thing. Like, these are people who like me, so they have me to dinner at their homes, New York City, some of them are my Harvard classmates, and they'll invite me to a dinner party to meet somebody in the government, and because they're a little nervous, because they don't know what I'm going to say. They always look uncomfortable, as though I'm going to ruin the dinner. I'm polite. I save it for dessert. I wait for the coffee and the creme brulee, and then I let them have it. And the thing is, they always look at me when I talk about this, and they'll say, Jonathan, can you really solve this kind of problem by throwing money at it? They love that expression, throwing money. So, I always ask them where their kids go to school. And typically, if they don't go to private school, they live in a very wealthy suburb where, where the district maybe spends $10,000 more each year on every child than it spends in poor neighborhoods of the South Bronx. And these people have the nerve to look me in the eyes and ask me, whether money really matters, They say, can you really solve this problem by throwing money at it? I always say, sure. That's a great way. That's the best way I know. Dump it from a helicopter, Give it to me. I'll bring it there myself. I don't know a better way to, to help a school principal reduce the size of class, from 32 to 16. So good teachers have twice as much time for every child. I don't know a better way to flood a school library with beautiful, expensive, delicious, exciting books for children. I don't know a better way to put a new roof on a collapsing building.